and especially my greetings to Professor Balki, Dr. Sahu, and all the staff of VARINDIA, whose readings I generally enjoy. And of course, it's a privilege to be invited to the SIITF, the latest edition. So we had a wonderful expo of what technology that India is capable of. I quite agree with Professor Balki when he says that we'll reach there. If he says it, I have tremendous belief in his words, so I think we will reach there. Today, it will be more of a freewheeling talk by me. I'll not be looking at any kind of structure. I've been asked to talk about what's generally happening in the scenario of cybersecurity, cybercrimes, data privacy, with a specific focus on what's happening in Karnataka and more specifically in Bangalore. So, you know, people tend to get carried away when they use the adjective cyber. Everything that touches any kind of a digital device or a computing device becomes cyber. So that's been the situation here. And as a technologist, I've spent more than 30 years in police. Before that, I was in the engineering service, where I used to do these things. But generally, I've felt that as the job has progressed, my job has progressed, there has been an important and there's been an increasing and enhanced role of technology. It has started to permeate everything. Back in the days, maybe 10, 15 years back, when I used to be in the city as additional commissioner and joint commissioner, technology was something of an outlier. When we used to use technology, you know, people used to generally, police tend to be traditionalists. What's he doing with the laptop? How can that control crime? I mean, that's not what is happening in the city today. But look at what's happening today in this context. Karnataka typically reports about 200 to 250,000 crime cases involving various aspects of crime. As of last year, 2023, I'm not showing it on the slide, we had 22,000 cases of cybercrimes, which is approximately 10% of the known crimes that we're having. This year, we are all going to cross 30. Next year, maybe it might be even more, maybe 35. So this is the pace at which crimes have grown. Earlier, nobody would convince me that crimes is scalable, you know. Crimes are quite static, maybe a 10% growth year on year. But if you look at cybercrimes, the figure that I told you, 22,000, 25,000 this year, 30,000 maybe, year before that, it was somewhere around 17,000. So it is galloping. In terms of progress of or incidence of cybercrimes, I'd like to tell the distinguished audience here that what is being reported may be about 10% of what's happening, or maybe 5% of what's happening. We have a national portal called the NCCRP or the NCRP, National Cybercrime Reporting Portal. You know, it's connected to a helpline called 1930. Some of us who might have been victims of cybercrimes, I don't know if there are any in the room, or those who know of anybody else, if a cyber fraud is seen to have happened and you have lost money, then you are supposed to ring up 1930 helpline and through that connect to the NCRP portal. So, when I am saying cybercrimes are 22,000 last year and this year is going to be 25,000, I might add that on the NCCRP, the figures of cyber frauds reported this year have already crossed 200,000. Not all cases have resulted into FIRs. Many of them are basically dealt with at the level of the banks. And when I talk about cyber crimes, I generally tend to classify them into two parts as of current day. On the one hand, you have cyber frauds in which people are inveigled or cheated or wheedled into parting with their money. The others, which I personally call as genuine cyber crimes, you know, the ones that really require digital forensic ability to crack and solve. So in the second category, you will have cases which are very serious of nature, like data theft, cybersecurity incidents and breaches, credit card theft, skimming, large-scale hackings. So these things will classify there. Apart from that, there are also separate blocks of cybercrimes like, crimes against children, which we call as CSAM, or child sexual abuse material online, which is very, very serious. And then we have harassment of women, sextortion cases, and newly emergent class of cybercrimes which are fueled by AI/ML technology like deep fakes, deep nudes, voice clones, and IPR-based offenses, that is intellectual property right-based offenses. And as I said, this class of crimes is only about 10% currently out of the 22,000, maybe less than that, maybe 5% to 6%. Remaining part belongs to the cyber fraud category. So vast resources now of the police in Karnataka. Karnataka reports about 60% of all cyber crimes across the country. This would be a sobering thought for all of us. We report about 60% of all cyber crimes reported due to various reasons. Maybe this is a tech capital, so the prey repository is more in Bangalore perhaps than all other cities combined in the country. Maybe we register the cases more and more frankly, as my peers would like to believe, possibly. So whichever may be the reason, we are accounting for a lion's share of the cyber crimes. And out of the lion's share belongs currently to the cyber frauds category. And what's a cyber fraud? Somebody cheats someone else or the victim out of his or her money. What happens to that money? That money goes to the account of the cheat, and from there on it starts flowing into different accounts at different layers. The main cheat's account we call as a layer 1 account, or the primary account, fraud account. From there, within minutes, using advantage that the digital payment system has provided us, the online systems have provided us, money will flow out within the hour or 2 hours into subsequent accounts or ancillary accounts. And from there, it will go to further accounts further down, then further down, up to layer 5, layer 6. So it would have started with 4 or 5 primary fraud accounts. By the time the money would have flown or would have been siphoned out of the system, it would have reached 6 or 7 layers with about 100 or more accounts. So when this particular case, whatever be the amount, maybe it is 1 crore, maybe it is 1 lakh, maybe it is 10 lakhs, when it comes to a police officer for investigation, so what that police officer is left with? The police officer has to first find out who are the owners of these accounts, the primary accounts. Failing that, he has to move to the second accounts. He has to move all the way to all those 100 plus accounts which have been involved in the fraud. And most of these accounts are what? They're dubious accounts. We call them as mule accounts. They have been created with the specific intention of siphoning away the money. They would be created some days before the fraud. The people who would be owning the accounts would be basically laborers or menial workers. The person who would have paid them 1,000 rupees, okay, you open this account online mostly, because from the financial inclusion point of view, now online accounts are easy to open, less of KYC done. Open it online, give some fake know your customer credentials, give us your ATM cards, we'll take them. Here's 1,000 rupees. Else, don't want to give ATM cards, then give your signature on a withdrawal slip or a check. We'll take those. Here's another 1,000 rupees for you. So the moment the money starts flowing from the victim's account, the fraudster will be ready, the cheat will be ready to siphon that amount using the ATM cards. Right now, before this, I was in another conference where I was briefing the government. In most of the frauds now, the money is being withdrawn in Dubai from ATMs. I was asking the banks in the SLBC as to how you are allowing ATM cards to be used in a ATM counter in Dubai. No, sir, we use them. You can withdraw up to 1 lakh in special ATM card. I told that's for special customers, gilded customers. How would a daily laborer qualify into that category? So then I was suggesting a point forward, that in order to prevent the future offenses, not the ones which have already happened, which need investigation, you shall have to identify mule accounts by some centralized means. Maybe that's an AI/ML algorithm which will permeate across the core banking system. Maybe we can design the parameters, may not be as divergent as a Gen AI model like ChatGPT. We can have about 100, 200 parameters, tunable parameters in which we can train the algorithm. So maybe that will help. Maybe that will at least identify the mule accounts with some accuracy. Possible that there will be a lot of false positives. What would a false positive mean? It would mean an innocuous, innocent account which has been found by the AML mechanism that is not actually a mule account. So that gets blocked. If that be the case, a complaint will come, the banks can do the due diligence. But then if we have a 99% accurate algorithm, which is not a very high measure of accuracy for an AIML artifact, AIML algorithm, even if you take 99% and there are 100,000 mule accounts currently in existence, not more than that, surely, how much would it come to? 1% of 100,000. It wouldn't be much, maybe 1,000 accounts. It wouldn't take much to verify physically and get these people out. But in the meantime, you have caught 99,000 accounts, and thereby you have completely taken cyber frauds out of the equation. The vehicle, the lubricant that moves cyber frauds in current day are mule accounts, my friends, primarily. Secondary drivers we are having, the digital payment system, the UPI stack, then the internet banking system, fake SIM cards, all these things exist. But the primary driver remains as the mule accounts. So this is, as far as cyber frauds are concerned, we are looking at various technological solutions to that. Manual solutions are, of course, always there. Currently, the detection rate is an abysmal 2%, or maybe less than that. That's also an optimistic figure. And as I was saying, as of November 30th, we were looking at the amount lost through cyber frauds that has come to around 3,000 crores for Karnataka alone. So it's a burgeoning industry. Coming to the second aspect of the cybercrime vertical that I am tasked for looking after would be the cybersecurity component. Cybersecurity is a different species from cybercrimes. Many times they are conflated, but I'd like to draw a line of distinction. Cybersecurity is something of an entity that relates to organizations, corporations, states, nations, bigger bodies, rather than cybercrimes which are individual oriented. But that doesn't mean that all cybercrimes, all cybersecurity incidents are not cybercrimes. Many of them turn into cybercrimes. For that, for attending to cybercrimes, we need expertise in an area called pre-enforcement forensics, pre-enforcement or cybercrime prevention, cybersecurity prevention measures. So if an incident happens or is suspected to have happened, it is advisable that the entity does a pre-enforcement forensic exercise through which it determines what has happened, whether it's worthwhile to go in for an enforcement action or else limit it within the organization. So that way it saves manpower, costs, deployment. It allows the reputation to be secured. So these things are really things which have not yet practiced in police anywhere, not just in India, but worldwide. I have also compared notes with my peers outside, and even there it's not very well understood. So since the length of this address is about 15 minutes, I'd like to complete it by looking at a third triad, which is now up and coming, and that's about data privacy. So data privacy is different from data security in many meaningful ways. Data privacy is not only a computational concept, it's also a concept which relates to legalities. So what data might be private is not easily defined. What might be PII? The Government of India is still grappling with it. When I was Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Information and Technology in 2021, way back, and was involved with preparing the DPDP Act, we thought that it is a done deal. Means it's just going to come the next week. Now that next week has extended to 3 years. So this is how complex privacy is. Privacy is not easily defined, amorphous concept. It's going to take time, my friends. What data is going to be PII? Which institutions would be adjudged as the data, the entities that will store data and would be responsible for that? Not yet clear. Which would be the data brokers? Not yet clear. Which organizations would be able to, be exempt from these privacy considerations? Not very clear. So when I was in the US last year in Berkeley, so this concept had come up, and we were discussing about the impact of privacy norms on the American laws. America had two laws. One was the Safe Harbor Act, and the other one was the Privacy Shield. So the GDPR norms, we are looking at GDPR as a base. Any country that's in the green list of the GDPR is considered to be the gold standard of privacy. There may be 14, 15 countries now. My friends, both Privacy Shield and Safe Harbor were struck down by the European courts. In the Schrems case, Schrems 1 struck down the Safe Harbor, and Privacy Shield was struck down last year by, again, Schrems 2. So if this is the state of affairs of US privacy laws, where might we be? And what might be the legal connotations of privacy breaches? What might be a privacy breach? How police is going to be involved and whether police is going to be involved. The fines which have been defined in the DPDP Act, which is still under considerations, are massive, crores together. So now for the sustainability, legal sustainability of this, the kind of a privacy regime that is contemplated, which is itself diluted compared to the GDPR, is in doubt. So this is a headache which police has not yet had to face. Whether police will face or some data protection authority will face is still not decided. Definitely at some point of time it is going to come to enforcement. So we have seen most of the civil disputes also ending up on our tables. It is also likely that all data privacy disputes will also end up on our table. So with this, I'd like to thank you again for having invited me. There are plenty of ifs and buts in enforcement related to cybercrimes, privacy-related complaints, cybersecurity. I'll be happy to field any questions if there are. Thank you again, VARINDIA and Dr. Sahu for having invited me to this forum. Thank you.